Last week, we decorated this stunning cake. This week, we're revealing who did the decorating. Birds. That's right, I said it. Birds did the decorating. We created the bottom half of this stunning wow factor cake last week and dedicated it to Grandma. This week, we're gonna personalize it even more as we give it the appearance that birds decorated it for her. Hi friends, my name is Sherry Ray and this is Every Cake Tells a Story, where we learn how to decorate together and love others through cake art. Because as I decorate, we'll learn a little bit about the person that cake was dedicated to. Last week, we got to know my grandma a little bit. She's a sassy, spunky, fun-loving woman, and she is a collector of many things, but one of her biggest collections are birds. These are just a few of the birds that she's given to our family. And I thought it would be so super cute if we decorated the cake with the strings coming out of the birds' beaks as if they did the decorating. Uber cute, right? However, before we get started, I better put my apron on, just like last week, because most of my childhood memories include Grandma in her apron. Okay, I'm all aproned up. Let's take a look at these birds for inspiration. I really like the way these birds are posed together. I think it's super cute. And it also has a bit of a handcrafted look, a little cartoonish. So I like this bird. I'm going to use it as a model. However, I think the coloring on this one is just stunning. So I'm going to kind of merge them together and into a new species. I'm going to make a new bird. Okay, I've got a visual in my mind. Let's go spread some love like icing.
I've prepared my fondant by softening it through stretching and kneading it. I'm going to make my birds out of straight fondant, and they may become a little blobbish or lose some of their definition as gravity kind of pulls them down as they dry. So to avoid this, I've also kneaded a bit of Tylose powder into my fondant. Oops! Don't forget to add a dusting of powdered sugar to the surface to keep it from sticking. I'll start with a ball and slowly start pinching and pulling and prodding it so it starts resembling these birds. Pull the little tail feathers out. Gotta make sure I'm getting the shape of the body correct. And my little model also serves as my support while my fondant is still drying. Once it's dry, I'll be able to pull my model out from under there again. When I look at this little bird, it looks like his beak kind of merges out of his face. I'm going to just pull on this fondant to try and get that same look. I'm going to slide one of my modeling tools along every side of the beak to further shape it. He's starting to look like a little birdie. So cute already. Time to focus on those eyes. I'll take my Dresden tool to create the sockets. For the eyes, I'll add later. When I go into a craft store, I always check out the cake supplies as well as the clay ones. I found this clay tool on clearance one day, and it just happened to make its way home with me. It's a wire brush of sorts, and I'm going to use it to give the bird some feather texture. Let's add some dimension to his tail feathers. I'm going to use the back end of this modeling tool and just slide it away from the bird a few times. He needs wings for flight. I'm going to roll out a small amount of fondant, and then I'll just freehand it using my models as inspiration. How's that for size? Oops, too big. Trim it down a little bit. That's better, but I've got to add some extra shape to it. Right now, it just looks like one big feather. It needs a little bit more life. So it looks like there's a few more feathers than that. We can't have the bird all textured up and then forget about the wings, so I'll use my wire brush here too. The final detail I want to add to the wings are the lines from that stunning blue bird. I'll be making 2 birds, so I've got 3 more wings to make. I'll use this first one as a template. I'll just make sure I've got some powdered sugar on the back of it so it doesn't stick to the new wing while I'm cutting it. Then I'll add all the texture And I need to make sure that these two wings don't dry out before I get to the second bird. I'll slide them into a zippy until I'm ready for them. Let's finish our first bird. To glue on the wings, I'll just dab the back with some water. Then I'll press it in place. I'm going to repeat all of that work, but we really need to jump ahead and bring these birds to life. I've got my Americolor gels. I'll add some blue to my paint palette, along with some white to get various shades of blue. Then there's one more very important step to painting with icing colors. It has to be diluted with alcohol or it won't dry. I'm using vodka, but I've also successfully used flavored extracts because they're typically alcohol-based and they will evaporate and work well too. Even if I'm painting my cake, I typically start with a fondant tinted similar to the final color I want. However, the handcrafted inspiration bird had some of the wood color showing through, and I wanted to recreate that. So I left my fondant white, and I want to make sure to allow tiny hints of that white to still show through. Let's skip ahead to the completed base coat. Alright, I've got my base coat done. I'm going to tell you what I'll be doing next, but then while I'm working on that, we'll get to know Grandma a little bit better. This cake is for her after all. I'll start with a lighter blue, then move on to black, and finish up with white. I'll focus my colors on the tail feathers and the wings. I'll also go into the curved lines on the wings with black, just like the model bird. And I love texture and depth on my projects, so I'll do quick swipes with my paintbrush all around the bird in the direction of the feathers with my light blue and white. Okay, let's go get to know Grandma better.
I've mentioned it many times that Grandma loves birds. And she has quite a number of friends and family and neighbors because she's so hospitable. When someone has a collection, it's so much easier to gift them something. Easy peasy. Grandma likes birds, Grandma gets a bird. She has
porcelain birds, bird coasters, teddy bear birds, bird calendars, bird wall decor, bird nightlights, wallpaper birds, 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 birds everywhere, birds.
I know those same bird gifters are thankful for another collection of Grandma's, Cookie Tin. When I was growing up, one of the first things we would do when we arrived at Grandma's was run for the kitchen for one of her famous chocolate chip cookies. At one point, she would bake about 100 cookies every 2 weeks. This was cookie gold for us because she would pack them in these cookie tins and freeze them. And then when we went home, she would send these tins home with us. When we came back the next time to visit, we'd come with a gift for her. An empty tin or two. And she would always send us home with another tin. All of Grandma's time in the kitchen leads to the last collection I want to highlight. Grandma had always wanted to put together a cookbook, and I know she was collecting recipes for years and years and years. And then, in addition, she spent one solid year asking everybody in the family for their favorite recipes. She would collect them and sort them. My Aunt Ev helped with the layout and the printing. And then for Christmas of 2012, she gifted everybody in the family a cookbook. It's an awesome cookbook filled with great recipes and super sweet family pictures. I love it. And I gotta say, my favorite recipe in here is simply called Grandma's Hot Dish. Let me read to you a bit of the inscription she included in mine. Keep up the good work with your decorating. You'll find a few pictures in the book too. Thanks for the encouragement, Grandma. I'm keeping up with the decorating. Now I think we need to give Grandma some encouragement in the comment section below, and then we should head on back to the cake.
Let's give those birds some sight. I'll give them two tiny little eyes, and then even tinier catch lights. I'm gonna give this bird a red breast just like Robin's, because I know Grandma loves robins. I'll use some red petal dust and just brush it on. It'll go into those grooves I've added with the wire brush, and it won't go on even, giving it even more, you guessed it, texture. Let's finish off those beaks with a bit of paint and our birds will be done. This new species. Why is that word so hard? This new bird needs a name. Let's go with Gramsie's bird, as in Grandma's bird. It's got a cute ring to it. Okay, we've got one last thing to make before we add the birds to the cake. A spool for our string. This will help illustrate the idea that it's string the birds use to decorate the cake. I'll cut 2 circles out for the 2 end pieces. Then I'll roll out a log for the center piece of it, a dab of water to secure it, and we'll finish it off by embossing a smaller circle into the ends of our spool, indicating where it would slide onto the sewing machine. We'll add a little bit of string to that spool. Let's put it on top of the cake now. I'm gonna position the birds where I want them, and then just to give them extra support so they don't sink on down into the cake, I'm gonna slide a bubble tea straw into the cake. Position my scissors at the top of the straw and pull the straw out just a bit to snip the excess off. I'll add a bit of royal icing to the bottom of the birds to glue them in place. The spool didn't need the support straw, but I did add a dab of icing to hold it in place. On to our last step. I'll pipe some string to each bird's beak. And then I'll just let it fall sporadically towards the edge of the cake where it'll connect to one of our drop lines. It's all done! It's so sweet! Just like Grandma and all her birds.
Now this cake screams Grandma. It's got the beauty, the elegance, and the wow factor in the bottom layer we did last week, and it highlights her treasured collection for birds. I want to cordially invite you to my kitchen again next week. Bye, friends!